Our members are leaders. Our members and leaders are teachers and factory workers, small business owners to have an impact on a range of important issues. And from their leadership in the communities or in the workplace, we often work with them for them to translate that at the election to run for office to provide our annual leadership award. Well, this year in deciding our award, into trying to decide who we could give the award to, we wanted to choose somebody who has had his ear to the ground. We wanted to choose somebody who understood that we shortchanged our future by creating a larger underclass and took away opportunities for working people. Well, we called Kevin Phillips.
We were attempting to pass a toxic labeling law, a so-called right-to-know law in Cincinnati. We were told we had almost no chance because the major powers that be in that town, particularly Procter & Gamble, didn't like the idea. In Maine, we raised the money to get him on TV. We went door to door to door to door. And of course he won. We then basically earned the right to challenge to get the legislation passed. And we, of course, did that nationally, that we pride ourselves in being able to do. Let me just say a couple of words about what's happened in the last year since the awards dinner in some of the issue areas important to us. With respect to national health insurance, require approval before insurance companies can raise those rates. In Texas, our organization helped make insurance reform an important issue from which Governor Ann Richards' campaign benefited, and the very far-reaching groundwater protection legislation. Now, throughout all of this, Paul Simon was there for us, particularly and especially when we got in trouble a decade ago with Congressman John Ashbrook, who thought that government through...
Bob, thank you very much. And Paul, thank you for being chosen so I could be chosen to be here with you this evening. It's true, Paul Simon pleaded with me to run for president. Great temptation. I just didn't want the damn job. I don't know whether it's Paul Simon or who it was said the way to punish Saddam Hussein would be to bring him to this country and make him the Democratic nominee. Nobody would ever hear from him again. I looked over this crowd tonight, and I must say, I don't think you could make the cocktail hour long enough to make this an interesting evening. But
to come and join all of you in this great tribute to a great American. Dale, we still have room on the mourner's bench at Bright Hope Baptist Church. Based on that story you just told, you qualify for being in Bright Hope Baptist Church. I can tell you're a good old Baptist from down south. I'm just really happy to be here tonight to salute Paul Simon. And one of the reasons is because we share a common commitment to two issues in our public life here in Washington, D.C. I work on issues that involve foreign policy and Africa, and of course, in his role in the Senate, he does the same thing. And recently, I was over in Africa at a conference where many of the African leaders came together in the Côte d'Ivoire and Abidjan, and they were all talking about Paul Simon and praising him and his great album, Graceland. And then there is another issue that we work on together, and that goes back to 1979 when I came in the 96th Congress. Paul Simon was already a member of the House, and when I came, I got on the Budget Committee as a freshman, and Paul was a senior member of the Budget Committee. And, you know, I knew that Paul once wrote a book called The Tongue-Tied American. And after watching him on that budget committee as a lowly freshman who sat in the next to the last seat on the committee, and he was about the fourth or fifth seat from the chairman, I can tell you it wasn't an autobiography. He could speak for 2 hours on any subject with regard to fiscal matters in the budget. And if he knew anything about it, he could speak for. Paul Simon was a man who didn't play finger in the wind politics. And you know that's good to see in Washington, D.C.
You old... He's terrific on health. He's terrific on foreign policy. And he's been courageous in taking on nominees of the president who were not fit for the post to which they had been nominated. He is good on everything he takes on, a man of unbelievable conscience and sensitivity. He cast unpopular votes, and he's never hesitated to go home and defend those votes with his people. He belies that old saw that a statesman is a successful politician who's now dead. I've served with him now for over 6 years in the Senate, but knew him as a very good friend long before that, while he was in the House of Representatives. And I remember well when he ran for governor against a classmate of mine who happened to have been #1 in my class in law school, and lost, but never deterred because he wanted to be a public servant and believed, as my father taught me, that politics was the noblest of all profession. I think my father was probably the last man who ever lived who taught his children that.
Thank you, Dale. For that very kind introduction. As Dale alluded to, he was my choice for president in 1988, and I decided to run only after Dale decided not to. And I was just reflecting today, and I told a member of my staff that I believe, and I believe firmly, that if Dale had run for president in 1988, that Bob Strauss would be the new ambassador to the Soviet Union. So thank you, Dale. And thank you, everyone who has spoken and is about to speak. Ron Silver, a great actor. Enemies, a love story, you made me laugh. And you made me cry. Reversal of Fortune, you played Alan Dershowitz. I don't know if you saw that. By the way, a fine civil libertarian in his own right. And if I had been on the Academy Award committee, Ron, you would have won the Oscar, not Jeremy Irons. And Ron tells me that that he hopes to stretch as an actor even more. In his next movie, he plans to play Gentile. So thank you, Ron. And Morton Barr, president of the Communications Workers of America. What I owe to Morton. Morton was the first to advise me, and this is a true story. He was the first to advise me to get call waiting. And Morton, thank you. Thank you, Morton. And speaking of dreams, Bill Gray. You know, people talk about Bill gracing our party's ticket in '92, and oh, how exciting that is. Just the thought of, a Foley Gray ticket, electrifying the electorate. Mr. President, watch out. Thank you, Bill. Heather Booth, Executive Director of the Democratic Values. Heather and I were both very disturbed by the recent Supreme Court ruling on the gag rule. And in fact, the next day, Heather presented me and Gene with a bumper sticker, and Gene and I put it on the back of our car. And which, by the way, we don't usually do. And but I was so taken with what was on the bumper sticker. It said, "If abortions are outlawed, only outlaws will have abortions." Heather. Heather, thank you. And Howard Metzenbaum. What can I say about you other than that you're an old Jew? I like to tell a little story about Hubert Humphrey. The year is 1968, and I was campaigning for Hubert in a little town in southern Illinois. And it seems that Hubert was late, and they said, "Paul, we need someone to kill some time." And so I got up to the podium and started to kill some time. And after about 20 minutes or so, a woman started screaming at me. And among the things that she was screaming was, "Why the bow tie?" And I told her that I liked the bow tie, and that was with Paul Simon, what you see is what you get. And at that moment, Hubert walked up behind me. I didn't see him, and he said, "Paul," in that way that he had of that voice of his, which I can't do. He said, "Paul, nobody cares about the bow tie." Well, I don't want to kill time tonight, because there's a great battle being fought in this country. In fact, as I speak these words, 1,000 miles west of here in my own home state. As a matter of fact, it's the second quarter of the Bulls-Lakers game. And so I'm going to cut it short, and maybe we can all catch the last 5 minutes or so. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. An honor.
really want to thank him for that kind and courageous introduction. And I'm happy to join him and another one of my fellow Baptists, Bill Gray, and we Baptists stand together. Now, I say that Dale is courageous because some of you may not be aware that up until tonight, Dale has made it a strict rule never to allow himself to be photographed with me within 2 years of his re-election campaign. And I want to thank you, Citizen Action, for inviting me here to help you pay tribute to a close friend and an outstanding senator. Paul Simon is something really special. I'm particularly pleased to be here tonight for Paul, and I don't have a better friend in the United States Senate, and I'm proud of that friendship. Now, on my way over here tonight, I first stopped by the annual congressional barbecue over at my friends over at the White House. I obviously didn't have time to eat. I'm sorry about that, because the food looked delicious. The leg of Gephardt was cooked to perfection. The filet of Foley looked tender and juicy, and the Mitchell burgers were clearly a hit. So I'm sorry I got here a little late. But make no mistake, the Republicans would like nothing better than to have our guest of honor on a spit, because he is one Democrat who's never afraid to rake them over the coals. Paul Simon's been a champion of the interests of working families and a tireless advocate for education, job training, health care throughout his public life. There's so many of us speaking so well of you tonight, Paul, that you just have a tremendously big head in the morning. I don't know how we're going to live with you. A self-made man, Paul left college to build a newspaper, a voracious reader, author of at least a dozen books, a skillful legislator, a political leader. Paul's been a role model for all Americans for a generation. As a newspaperman, state legislator, lieutenant governor, congressman, and senator. And Paul and his wife, Jean, I'm really sorry isn't with us here this evening, are a very special couple. She's his helpmate, his love, and his best friend. And I think we all ought to give Jean Simon a special round of applause at this point, if you please. This is a town that suffers from an integrity crisis. Paul Simon stands out. He's the very definition of integrity. And he's no latter-day convert to political ethics. He reshaped the politics of his own state as the author of the Illinois Open Meetings Law. And he's made personal financial disclosures down to the last penny for 36 years. I'm proud of the fact that Paul Simon is a co-founder with a number of others in this room of the Coalition for Democratic Values, an active board member, and I remember when he was running, and I said, Paul, you know, there's some who recognize that the Coalition for Democratic Values is unabashedly a liberal organization. We don't try to pretend that we're shadow Republicans. We just speak out, and maybe as far as your campaign is concerned, maybe you ought to hold off and join until after the election was over. Paul said, oh no, I join now, I don't care. And that's so typical of Paul Simon. He never runs away from the hot issues or the challenging positions, just a stand-up guy. And as a working politician, he's unquestionably one of the best. His attention to constituent service, everybody in Illinois knows about it. It's legendary. Story is told that he once approached the Pope himself on behalf of Illinois soybean farmers. He sought to have the Lord's Prayer amended from "Give us this day our daily bread" to give us this day our daily soybeans. As you might expect, the Vatican could not agree to the amendment. They couldn't break the daily bread deal they had already made with Bob Dole. I read about a study in today's Washington Post says Americans are angry about the political process. They feel they're victims of a hostile takeover of the political process by a professional class that deals in the art of avoidance.
Dale Bumpers, thank you very much. We're going to hear from both Senator Simons again, and we're almost at the end of the evening, so I hope you can all be patient. I'd like to bring up now to present the Citizen Action Leadership Award to Senator Simon, representing our Board of Directors and the Executive Committee, Maryland State Delegate Ken Montague, and our Illinois Executive Director, Bob Creamer, to present the award to Senator Simon.
Here it is. Ask him to come up. Yes. Senator Simon, would you come up? In presenting the award, I'd just like to read for all what it says. Citizen Action Leadership Award, Senator Paul Simon. You have led the way for a better society for all Americans by creating opportunities for individual citizens. You have fought against corruption by opening up the political process to reflect the best democratic ideals. You have fought tirelessly to protect and preserve the rights of Americans who lack a strong voice in our nation's affairs. You have led the fight to solve the problems of world hunger. You have fought for the right of every American to be educated. You have fought against human rights violations around the world. You have fought to maintain and expand the enforcement of civil rights. You have fought for access to quality health care and long-term care for all Americans. You have fought to ensure that every American has the opportunity to work for a decent wage and in a safe workplace. You have fought first and foremost for the concerns of working families. For all these reasons, and many more, the board and members of Citizen Action present to Senator Paul Simon the Citizen Action Leadership Award on this 5th day of June, 1991.
Thank you very, very much. Bob, you're a good man. Thank you. I get to keep that. Oh, okay. I'll let you hold on to it here, Bob. I thank you, Ken and Bob and my colleagues and everyone here for being at a dinner when you have so many dinners in Washington, and you have come out here tonight. Ira and Bob, I thank you. Ron Silver, you have never been more eloquent. Proud to be here with you. Dale Bumpers has the best sense of humor of any member of the United States Senate. That's not just my opinion, that's his opinion too. And if you don't believe me, come on to the Senate floor when the vote takes place, Ted. You come onto the floor, and if you see 4 senators gather together laughing, and you see Dale Bumpers laughing louder than anyone else, it means that Dale Bumpers has just told a story. That's literally true. Howard Metzenbaum and Paul Wellstone can vouch for that. Morty Barr, one of the truly great progressive leaders of this country. Morty, I'm honored to have you here. Heather Booth, you have just been terrific. And Heather's family, parents, are here tonight, and you ought to be very, very proud of that daughter of yours, let me tell you. Bill Gray, I look forward to the day when Bill Gray is on our national ticket. and I think it's going to happen. And Howard Metzenbaum is, you know, they say, what has happened to the giants in the Senate? You know, part of that is just, as you look back, they've always said that. But let me tell you, there is a giant in the United States Senate, and that's Howard Metzenbaum. And Howard, I'm honored to have you here. My colleague Paul Wellstone is here, and Paul was taking a few raps here a few weeks ago, and I told some of my colleagues, I said, let me tell you, Paul is going to come through this well, because Paul has a good head, but more important than that, Paul has a good heart and a great backbone, and he is going to be a real leader in this nation. Paul, I'm proud to have you as a colleague. And Al Franken. It is great of you to come down. Terrible sense of humor, but great of you to be here tonight, and I'm grateful to you. And while my wife is not here and my daughter is not here, my son Martin is here, and I'm very proud of that son of mine. Pleased to have him here. I accept this award because you were generous enough to give it, and I'm vain enough to enjoy it, honest enough with myself to know that I don't fully deserve the award, but there are people here who do. I mentioned Heather Booth before. She's been fighting all of her life for these causes. Evie Dubrow. Evie, stand up. You deserve she really has been terrific. Well, I'm going to take exactly 4 minutes of your time. I have a book in the front seat of my car tonight, written by E.J. Dionne, Why Americans Hate Politics. I haven't read it yet, but I think I understand why Americans hate politics, because they don't see politicians standing up and fighting for them as Citizens Action does, Bob. Yes, I got nearly 1 million votes, 979,000 to be exact, was the last time, Howard. But in 1984, I won by 89,000 votes. And Bob Kramer, wherever you are out there, I would not have won but for Citizen Action standing up and going door to door in the state of Illinois. So I ought to be giving a trophy or an award to Citizen Action here tonight rather than the other way around. But the reason people hate politics is cynicism, a word that Ron Silver used. When I go to college campuses, every once in a while there'll be a young faculty member about the age of Congressman Tom Sawyer back there who'll get up and start telling you why you can't do this and why you can't do that. And I'll stop him and I'll say, let me tell you, for every reason for cynicism you give me, I can give you 10 more. But the cynics aren't going to build a better world. It's people who believe and fight for things. And that's what we have to do. The tragedy that we have to fight for a civil rights bill, it isn't, frankly, isn't as strong as it ought to be in giving opportunity for people. But we have to fight for it, as everyone in this room is doing. And let me just add, a lot of my staff people are here, and they're the ones who ought to be getting this trophy. Let me just tell you 3 stories, then I will sit down. One is I held a town meeting in Illiopolis, in Teutopolis, Illinois, a little town of about 1,000 people, in the village hall. And a woman got up and said, my name is Gloria Wattles. I'm 45 years old, and I want to read to you the first letter I've ever written. And she read this letter thanking me for establishing the Vista Literacy Corps. It was really the story of her life, and halfway through she started crying, and she had the whole town hall meeting crying. And when she finished, I said, Gloria, would you come to Washington and testify? And she did, and the same thing happened. I can't remember, Howard, whether you were there, as a matter of fact, because you tried to get her on the Today Show the next day. I remember that. But I remember Nancy Kassebaum leaning over next to me afterwards, and she said, I know I'm a senator, I'm not supposed to cry, but I couldn't help it. As a result of that, little item in the Washington Post, name that many of you will recognize if you follow football, Dexter Manley called, told his story. He agreed to testify. And he was standing on the sidelines when Joe Theismann broke his leg. Dexter was making $600,000 a year. Called a Washington school and said, I need help. Something that people rarely do in this situation. They try and hide it. They tested him. He read at the second grade level. What do you call it, Morty? Why can't we do a host of things to enrich our country? Why can't we guarantee a job opportunity for every American and reduce drug consumption and all the other problems that confront our country? Well, we can't because we don't have enough people like you standing up. We have to do better. We have to have not only good heads but good hearts. A second story. I was in Africa, Malawi, right next to Mozambique, where there's a civil war. Malawi is one of the poorest nations in the world. 28 of the 42 poorest nations in the world are in Africa. We went down in the deep part of Malawi, visited a refugee camp, 40,000 people there, very primitive conditions. They asked me to speak to the refugees there. Incidentally, in Malawi, 800,000 refugees in a country of 7 million people. It would be like the United States having 30 million refugees. Anyway, they separated the groups into the men, the women, and the children. No PA system, thousands of people in front of you. I shouted, an interpreter shouted after me. When I spoke to the women, to the children, about 20 feet from me was a little boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old, with an infected eye and insects on his eye. And I said, is anyone helping him? And the response was, we can only take care of emergencies. I've never forgotten that little boy. I don't know how that little boy's future ties in with the future of my son here, but I know instinctively in some way it does. And I know we have to reach out to those who are less fortunate here at home and abroad. And then a final story about someone many of you knew. Senator from New York, Jacob Javits, defeated in New York, and shortly after he was defeated, it was discovered he had Lou Gehrig's disease. And you could just see Jack Javits shrinking in front of you. About 8 weeks before he died, he was wheeled into my office wearing a device on his chest, and I'm sure he was in your office, Howard and Dale too, wearing a device on his chest to keep him breathing, and they plugged it into the wall to keep it going, and he started lobbying me on a bill that he was interested in. And when he finished, I said to him, Jack, you're an inspiration. And I'll never forget his response. He said, Paul, you have to have a mission in life. I believe that. I believe that we can build a better America and a better world. That's your mission. That's my mission. And I'm honored to be associated with you in that mission. Thank you very, very much.
Senator Simon.
Well, I feel silly after that speech. But anyway, as a recipient of the Citizen Action Lifetime Achievement Award, you have to do what every recipient does, and that's take the pledge of fidelity to the principles of the Citizen Action group and of Citizen Action. And so I'll administer the oath if you'll come here. Raise your left hand. I, Paul Simon.
I, Paul Simon.
Being an unapologetic liberal.
Being an unapologetic liberal and progressive.
Okay. Bow tie and all.
Bow tie and all.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
To live by the principles and credo of Citizen Action.
To faithfully execute the office of President. No.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you all. We'll see you again next year.